Good evening, peoples. Let's jump in here. I owe you two videos, one on YBIT and one on AMZ. I just was very busy here, and I needed to get out my declaration video, which took me a while because I created an all-new format. Okay, so let's jump in here to BITO and YBIT, and then in a little while I'll have AMZ and Amazon out. Okay, so what happened? Well, we went down 1.26% on BITO, and what did we do? 1.09 on YBIT. So the situation is good. We won all of our weeklies. We had already bought those back early. Good move on that part. And on Friday, with some new shares being bought, another 150,000 went from 4,075,000 shares to 4,225,000. Obviously, we've been going down, so some people took advantage of this. The only issue I'm having after reporting on this since the very beginning and really watching it, right? A derivative on a derivative. I've mentioned this a few times. That in itself is not negative. What is negative is that BITO has moved to a high yield, right? So I had bought some BITO shares early in the year, like January, February. I forget exactly when I bought it. It was under $30. It subsequently went up to 33, 34 near Bitcoin highs. And when I saw that they paid a dividend, I said, oh, I'm interested in that. It's a small dividend, but I don't really want to go out to an exchange and take possession and worry about a cold wallet and about all of that with Bitcoin because I don't really do any other crypto besides BTC. I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm just saying that's me, right? We're all entitled to our opinions. And since it's my video, I'll give you my opinion. I avoid that on political or other things that I have no right to share my political views because obviously people have their own. And if they differ from mine, I don't really want to hear somebody else's. I go out and I read both sides and I make up my mind just like you folks do. So I try to leave politics out. When it gets into an economic issue, if I have a belief about an economic issue, I'll state that opinion. And if one political party's more pro that or against that, so be it. I'm not really choosing to do that. And the main reason I do that, I mean, I could get a stronger audience in those that believe my beliefs, but I just find it repulsive if I'm watching a movie and that actor is getting a award and he gets up there and starts talking about politics. That's not why he's there on that stage. He's on that stage because he performed well in a movie or he's a favorite actor. So I don't, the same thing with musicians and other people. They can talk all they want about politics, but what qualifications do they really have? Just like what qualifications do I have? I'm more stronger on my economic views of what things ought to be than I am on pure political. Okay, so having said all that, it's not really a rant, it's just reminding you. So, what I don't like about YBIT is it sits on top of BITO. And I don't know if this is purposeful. Somebody brought it up. So, ProShares has a huge number of Bitcoin funds, and they have 1x long, they have 2x long, they have 1x bearish, they have 2x bearish. So I'm really looking at all their funds, just like BlackRock and Vanguard, and I don't know if Vanguard does, but BlackRock and a lot of other companies, right? ARK with Kathy Wood, she used to buy BITO all the time, and she said, well, why am I giving all them money? So she started her own fund, right? And I don't know, ARK, I forget the name of it. You can look it up. And so, but when I saw BITO and I said, well, they pay a small dividend. I've told this story a few times, but remember, I get new subscribers and now I'm telling you about negatives on. So I think it's meaningful. So I looked at Bitcoin, I bought it, it had like a 20, 30 cent history of payouts. It said, or 12%, or sorry, 12 cents on the previous one. I said, well, that's just icing on the cake. I bought it because it's futures on BTC and I don't have to do the exchange and wallets and all of those kinds of things. So I said, I'm going to buy Bitto. And then I got a dividend. And then by the time I got my second dividend, I was like, wow, this is $1. That's totally unheard of. And then they went to $1.50, $1.60, $1.70, right? And so in that time frame, YBIT came out, and it's on top of Bitto options because Bitto has so much trades and ProShares is such a large fund, they have a big following and hence the option. So the very first thing I did when my Bitto went down, like I said, I think I bought it at under 30, so call it 29. And I started looking in the options and it still had a high premium because we weren't that far from going up to all-time highs in Bitcoin. And I saw a pretty huge premium and I thought, okay, I'm going to go out and write. It was a 37, I think I wrote 137 and 140. And I still got like $2 or $3 out 3 or 4 months. Well, subsequently, those expired and I kept my premiums because, Bitto went the other way. So, Bitto, by increasing its dividend to a very high yield, just like YBIT, they had more people coming into it, but I started really then noticing the NAV erosion. I'm like, wow, my Bitto is going down. I owed it at 29. Where's it at now? It's at 20. But I've been getting 4 or 5 large dividends, right? And so then you add into that YBIT, same model. You buy it at 20, right? I know that it flew initially, and some people, one of my channel supporters and somebody that's been there is always commenting, you know, really good guy. So Bruce, I bought it at 2045, and in my first analysis, I said, wow, they chose a really high strike price. So when they bought a call and sold a put, they had $9 or $10 profit between how much higher that put was. They were collecting money like crazy. And I said, wow, they got $6 or $7 of payout money. Now, they had a paper loss that corresponded to it's going to have to get settled, 6 weeks out. I said, I think these guys they could pay 250 plus. They could be a Misty, right? Well, and a lot of people hit me, oh, Bruce, you were really off on that one. And deservedly so. I'm telling you now, right? I made an estimate of 250 plus and said they could pay 250 plus. I thought it would be high ones. Well, it was like $1.37, but they had $6 or $7 worth of profit, but they had that paper loss. Well, they learned very quickly. They know that paper loss is there and they're not going to overpay. Even Misty, when they had an $8 gain, it was more real. They didn't have that much of a paper loss and they chose to pay us $4, right? Which has never been as high since then because the launch time worked perfectly. So the issue with YBIT that I have is twofold. Number one, it's paying out a high yield, and particularly for its price, right? But like all stocks, when you get a NAV reduction, your actual payment is going down. You're still yielding. So if you bought new shares, but if you bought it at $21 and you're collecting your payments, you're not getting an 80% yield when you get $1.21 on the last payment. I don't have it in front of me to know, but they're paying very well for what the current price is. The problem is you get into that decay mode. Bitto is now in that decay mode. But why I like Bitto better, the whole summary here is Bitto doesn't get capped. It's playing in the futures market. It's more directly connected to BTC. But if you look at there, you say, well, wait a minute, Bitto's not holding up equally to BTC. You're correct. However, what do I always preach to you guys? Total return, right? So how do you evaluate total return. You say, okay, well, I've owned BITO, let's say the last 6 months. Here's how much I've been paid, $6, $7. I don't have it in front of me, right? So I've got that. So when you look at BITO and you compare it to BTC, you say, well, if I add all the money I've been paid, they're pretty close to being on par. So YBIT is certainly doing better when you add all that back in. Where's it at? 1537. Okay, it all depends on where you bought it, right? So if you bought it at $20, which I always assume when I do my total return, you need to make up $4.63. Well, it hasn't paid for $4.63. It's paid $1.37 and $1.21. But when it makes this next payment, and I'll go ahead and tell you, if you saw my prediction video, I said $1.04. Okay. So if they pay $1.04 and $1.21 and $1.37, let me do a quick math on my other monitor. Okay, but guess what happens when they go to pay the $1.04 for a while there? We're going to drop that dividend. So that's 362. So my biggest concern here is the fact that they then have to adjust their options once a month on BITO, because BITO pays this big thing. And I see this red here. That's my comment note, right? It says ex dividend 801 on BITO down $1.44. Look at that. They had been 269 and they went down to 2061. You had the effect of the 144 being taken out and a further slide. So they were down 9% that day. We were only down 455. Now we're going to get that same effect on 8-6 when we declare, right? We're going to declare, let's say they do 104. Then the next morning on 8-7, you're going to see YBIT drop. So, we're always chasing that. And the problem is these income funds, if you haven't figured it out, they get capped a lot of times. If it's a slow gradual, when you got Amazon and you got some of these companies, they're not going to fly up 9% in a day. It just doesn't happen. And they're not going to get capped. But these really big movers, you see it in NVIDIA, you see it in Coney, and you see it in Misty. Sometimes they fight through it, okay? But there's a limit to what the fund managers can do when they're writing their naked calls, their weekly calls. So on the synthetic, they're long. Whatever MSTR does underneath Misty, right? If you had no naked weekly call, you would rise the exact amount. So if MSTR goes up 15%, you go up 15%. But when you wrote a call out 7%, then that 8% over gain on your naked weekly call eats into all of your gain on your synthetic. So you end up not really getting much of a gain, like 1/3. Maybe you're up 5% on the day and MSTR is up 15. So repeatedly, and some stocks do that. Some stocks run aggressive consistently when they move. So I always say there's a place in my portfolio for income funds, but there's a place to be long. I even go more aggressive. I'll go out and buy a 2x ETF. I'd rather go buy, I forget which one, I don't have it in front of me, but I have a big list of my 2xers, right? So ProShares has, there's BitX and there's BitU and there's SBIT. Some of them are bearish and some of them are bullish on twos. So I go by the 2x long when it's running. I still keep a small amount, but I'm even considering, okay, taking my YBIT off the table. Haven't made up that decision yet, and putting it in BITO as my income fund because it doesn't get capped. Okay, just sharing it, just being real with you. It isn't done yet. I'll keep you posted. So sorry about the long rant. Okay, I'm bullish as heck on BTC, and I will do similar things on Coney and Misty, except I don't see the need to sell them. Okay, I keep my percentage in the income fund, and I go play the 2Xers, okay, for the big impulse waves in addition, right? And if we're going down, remember, we go down around 90, 95% the same. It's just that we're going to win our weeklies. That's when they're benefiting us. We're going to get some income. We're still going to go down, but those people that say you have 100% of the downside, again, that's wrong because we're collecting income. But it's really frustrating if you're in one of these that goes down and you're getting 90, 95% of the down, but getting your income, and then it roars back up from the bottom and you're capped and you're only getting a third of the upside. Okay. So you don't always get capped. There are times when it's just moderates or it goes down and you win on your weeklies a little bit, or goes sideways or slightly up and you win on your weeklies. So there are times, but on some of these really high volatile assets, it pays to take additional approaches. For you active traders, that's why I try and give you the advice. I get it. Some of you can't be active. You don't have options capability. You don't even want to be hit with short-term capital gains. I don't worry about that in some of my accounts. So if I go buy a 2Xer, and by the way, don't go buy a 2X bull or bear and just leave it alone for months on end. You're going to get some premium decay because it has a hard time staying a pure 2X. Okay. So that's not a scenario I recommend. I recommend going into those. So again, some of you that aren't traders or swing traders, I'm not talking about day trading. You could. I'm talking more of a swing trade. 3 days a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. Okay, guys. Um, I'll get into the rest of the video, but if you don't enjoy the rant, you know what you can always do is just fast forward. But I know a lot of you get educated and learn. So I'm still in YBIT. I'm just identifying a problem I've been seeing for quite a while. And I like to be real and I like to be honest with you guys. The last thing you want me to do, and by the way, somebody hit me up in Discord. I'm going to still report on YBIT, even if I close out 80% of my position or 100%. I'm going to do it to the community and keep my channel strong by giving people what they want. Okay, guys. So with that share count, we put on 3 trades, right? You guys have all seen this. We bought a 28, which is our current and the only active synthetic. We bought 1,130 contracts. Again, they're using a 28. And where is that? That's $8 out of the money. They used to use a 35 when they were around 24 or 25, and that was $10. So it's good for collecting money, but you got a liability, so they can afford to pay us a high yield, but at the same time, they ultimately have to settle. So we need BTC, the underlying that then impacts BITO on its futures on BTC, so we can get going. So they paid 3 cents for the call and sold the put for $7.39. Well, it's still 8.16, guys. So we've only got 2 weeks before they got to settle that, but then they'll probably go right a 26 or something until we really get out of this torturous mode. And that's not their fault. I'm not even faulting the fund managers. I really haven't seen poor execution like I've seen in some of the other funds. They're just doing what they can do. And then we sold 1,130 contracts at 21.5. Now I'll put a little fault. That seems real close to me. Okay. But maybe, I see Bitcoin in after hours and it's Saturday. I'm seeing it um, at 60,000. So it's not, quote, hanging in there, it's dropping. So there's probably, and again, I don't know if it's a US selling their BTC, that we were talking about being reserves. I'm just not always sure. There always seems to be a reason. I'd say 70 to 75% of the time, those reasons are valid. Other times, people are guessing. So anyway, all I know is it's going down. I don't know where the bottom is. I really don't. I can look at it technically and tell you there, if we get into the 55s at 53, 52, 55 are very strong resistance. Last time we bought them in the high 53s. Okay, guys, so what did that do? That put a little bit of money, not much, in the kitty on our, we also sold a 21.5. Why do I worry about that? All of our stuff is 21s and 21s and a half. We're not that far out of the money, right? This is 5.65. Let's go look at our weekly chart. I think I got to add this 130. I do. And that's also 2150. And that would have the same out of the money price and the same 8-9 expiration. So just a few more of those. So we've only collected 4.7%. Let's go look at the holdings, guys. So we didn't really, I mean, we moved down a little bit, not as bad as some of the other funds. So we've got this $23 million liability, okay, on this 30. Well, of course you do. When you're trading at $20 and this thing's 28, where's all the money? It's practically worthless here. And this is the big bulk of exactly your time. This is all in real value. This isn't even much time premium left, right? 2035 from 28 gives you, 765. Um, so this isn't even showing probably, even though that's the real number on the closing. So guys, we're winning a tiny bit on these guys, but also if we turn and move up, we're going to get capped very quickly. But, I don't even know that on Monday we'll see it. It'll probably drop further. So that the capping maybe won't even come into issue this week. All right, guys, that's what I got. Let's just jump over. I mean, I gave 1537 versus 1532. Um, that's fair. Let's just go right over to the payouts. And you know what my prediction is. I put it in here 104. And on the current price, that's like, whoops, should be 80. Yeah, 81.20. So I'm saying that, let me clear one. I was tracking what this was before I added the changes. Okay, so with that increase a little bit in the synthetic, right? I didn't actually show you that, but it's not much, but anything is positive. So this is the 3 cents on the 1130. So we got 832,000. I mean, it's not bad, but we still, well, and that's where 20 million has come from altogether and all of these, right? Um, so what we really have is what I was describing. We have this month, we're showing a loss because for the first time we went in and closed out the 35 to go down to the 38. That's why you see a loss over here. And even here. So we have $1.11, but they're going to pay us whatever they choose to pay us because we've got $7 worth at this share count, which would be about $3.50. We've still got 16 million, which is almost $4, not quite $4 worth of value that's coming forward. Now, we have a liability, right? I mean, that's always a classic case. We owe 23 million, but we have 16 money in the bank that we've collected, and we have a paper loss that hasn't been realized. So, I mean, the payment could be lower. It could be 80 cents, could be 75 cents. I'm just going with a drop here that's commensurate, but we are lower. So, this thing could be 90 cents, but what kind of yield is that? It's still a pretty terrific yield. It's just, can we get through this? And we shall see, right? It's still, that's a 70%, right? Call it 90 cents is actually what I was trying to type. Whoops. And I hit the wrong keys. Yeah. Whoops. There we go. 70. So that's a possibility. I'm not trying to change, and I gave you my prediction and what I have. But just understand this is a tough fund, and they've done it a certain way so that they have the ability. Otherwise, people wouldn't even be buying this thing if it wasn't paying, because they know BTC is volatile and very likely to go to higher levels at some point. So I mean, I'm not shifting away from BTC. I may just be shifting my strategy away from YBIT. So when somebody asks me in the Discord, hey, Bruce, I'm considering Coney, Misty, and YBIT. How do you think my allocation? What do I tell them? Well, less in YBIT, more in Coney and Misty. And Coney's really on sale right now. Um, so that's how I would do it. I'm in YBIT. I haven't sold, but I'm strongly considering it. Okay, guys, again, not financial advice. Sorry about all the lengthy rant, but I think it's information you guys really need. Some of you know it, some of you don't. All right, so this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. It's for fun and education and a little ranting. All right, guys, have a great rest of your weekend. Bye for now.